That is correct. We're seriously considering it right now, and we've not made any final decisions, but we are very serious about this decision.
What will be some of the criteria that you look at before making a final decision?
Well, we're talking to my family right now very closely. We're reaching out to many supporters, and then we are meeting with a team of advisors to make sure that this is the right decision for me and for New Mexico.
And certainly that team of advisors must be letting you know you're going to have to raise a lot of money to be competitive. Have you talked to the Democrat Senate campaign committee and discussed whether you would get their support and be able to go out and raise the money needed?
We have reached out to them. They've responded very favorably. I don't anticipate that they're going to make any decisions very soon. But also in those discussions with my team of advisors, we really think that we could bring a level of excitement and a new vision to New Mexico that would really have a big impact on this race.
And there's been a lot of buzz about you on Twitter, on conservative talk radio shows even, that you would be a new generation leader that could go to New Mexico. But that includes a lot of responsibilities. What would you take to Washington as a New Mexican representing constituents that would be a compelling enough reason for people to support you in the primary?
Well, I was raised in a little town called Bingaman, New Mexico, and was educated in New Mexico. It's real important that we lead with an outsider's perspective, and I think that that's what's exciting about this candidacy. The second thing is we bring a level of fiscal discipline that I don't think is seen very much in this type of political environment, and that's something we've been able to lead with a sense of fiscal discipline and a new approach to governing, and I think that it's going to play very well with constituents.
Some pundits have said you're a second-tier candidate. Why should you be included in the first tier right away?
Well, we've been very successful statewide with very small budgets. We haven't asked much of our constituents other than to rate our job performance at the ballot box, and I think we've been very successful with that. I think that being state auditor is a very difficult position. It's not an overly politicized position, but in the time of fiscal crisis that we're experiencing right now, I think it brings a calmness to voters to know that there are elected officials that actually lead with the truth and tell the truth and protect the taxpayer, and I think that that's an exciting thing that we bring to this equation.
And you were just re-elected to the state auditor's office for your second term in the fall, and now folks both in the executive branch and in the legislature are talking about cutting your very small staff's budget even more. Is that a prudent thing to be doing this year?
I don't think so, but I think that it's this new perspective of governing that I bring that has really pushed the envelope to have that debated. And I don't think that that was something in the past that they considered a worthy investment, but I'm here to tell you that accountability is the first priority in my administration.
And you've already had some success in the legislature with a proposal to limit and or withhold 5% of funding for government entities around the state that are either delinquent or seriously in the arrears for providing those mandated audits. Tell us a little bit about that legislation.
Well, in addition to taking the stand for the taxpayer and uncovering the largest embezzlement in public school history, we've also introduced various pieces of legislation, reforms that bring greater accountability to the legislature and the executive agencies. All those pieces of legislation have been received very well, and it's part of the kind of reform movement that we bring to our office.
Do you sense that there are legislators who want to cut back your funding because it hits too close to home and accountability with maybe levels of corruption they don't want the public to find out about?
It's hard for me to speculate why there's some short-sightedness on this issue. I personally just think that they're not used to an elected official like myself bringing that issue of accountability to the forefront. And we have to change, both in Washington and in Santa Fe. We have to do a better job of protecting the taxpayer resources. Whether you're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican, that is what the public is demanding.
How, since this race, if you make it through the primary, and into the general. Most races are decided in the middle with independents and moderates. How will you appeal to them?
Well, it's early. I haven't made a decision, but we have a extremely high track record in appealing to all New Mexicans because as the Office of the State Auditor, we've protected every institution, every rural community in New Mexico, and every state agency, and I think there's something to be said for that type of leadership in this very tough fiscal climate.
You probably had your eye on the Senate for a while, as a lot of young politicians do, or a lot of young leaders. Did you expect that you would be entertaining a race for the U.S. Senate in 2012, or did you anticipate it might be later in 2018? In other words, did Bingaman's retirement kind of shake up your plans?
There's been a lot of movement in my recent political career from retirements that have impacted whether young leaders get their shot at serving in higher office. Senator Bingaman was a phenomenal role model in that he led with a quiet confidence. He was always very thoughtful in his deliberations, but most importantly, he really led with a humble spirit. And it was surprising to me that he chose to retire. We're grateful that we have him for another couple of years. But in many ways, it shouldn't be a shock to us because I really think that he was thinking about his constituents, that he's really made a contribution and he's at peace with that. And so I really respect him. As far as the opening, the opportunity, it is just a privilege to think about this position, serving New Mexicans in such an important role. And it's something that we will take to heart as I talk with my family about it.
What else have you been thinking about in the last few days since this opportunity presented itself?
You know, the fiscal discipline is so important for our future, our children, and the type of investment we're going to make. I'm very concerned right now that the fiscal outlook of our nation has been politicized by both sides in a way that I'm very concerned that they're not grappling with the unsustainable condition of our economy and the type of governing that needs to come out of Washington, D.C. and Santa Fe. I think it's going to be young leaders that really have a stake in the next generation, that really put forth ideas and put forth the willingness to work together. And I think coming from the outside, coming from a community like Wagon Mound, and working myself up through the ranks, really my loyalty is to the taxpayers and to ensure that progress is made. So this is an exciting time to consider running for the United States Senate with that type of fresh perspective.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down at lunch with us and taking the time to talk to us about this important decision you're facing.
Thank you very much.